Hi guys, it's Megan from Megabucksavingz here. Today I am going to share with you guys my transition from a baby bed into a toddler bed because I have a 20-month-old that is now climbing out of his crib and I need to just finally transition it all out because the last couple of days he's been climbing it out and using his dresser to get out for I don't even know how. And then he's getting his changing pad and using it as a slide and sliding down off of his dresser. So it is time to transition from a baby bed into a toddler bed and try to hope for the best because my son isn't very adventurous. He has a very adventurous side and he is a risk taker. So he definitely is needing to transition to this toddler bed so we keep him safe and not get out of his crib and fall and hurt himself. But at any rate, I am just taking the bed apart and reading the instructions on the bottom of the bed, so don't mind me just staring on the inside of the crib here. There is instructions on how to take the front face off. For whatever reason, I could not figure out how to get the front face off. There were hooks to lower the front face of the crib so you can pull the baby out of the crib, but I never used that because it's so old. I used this for my 13-year-old son. He is 14 now, actually. He just turned 14. So, he used this as a baby bed, but I think he hung on it so much on the front end of it that it just didn't ever work coming down and up, so we just kept it locked up on the highest adjustment. And so at this point, my 20-month-old, he had to have his bed lowered from the time he was a year old because he is on the taller end and he's always been trying to get out of his crib, but luckily I've made it to 21 months actually, and he is had stayed up into his crib this whole point. So at any rate, the last couple of days he has been climbing out, and again he's been using his dresser and his changing pad to get down off of his out of the crib, I guess I should say. But here I just have to try to figure out how to get the front face of the crib off to make it into the toddler bed. Again, I have it on the lowest setting that you can take it. So all I just have to do is take the front face off, and that is essentially the toddler bed. So I am not going to use any sort of way to keep him on the crib because the dresser is there and actually will help him stay on the bed. But if he does have trouble staying in his bed, I will certainly get something to kind of hold him into his bed so he doesn't roll off in the middle of the night. But he is so, I don't know, but he is such a good sleeper, and so I have never noticed him rolling around too much to not stay in his bed, so we'll figure it out as we go. But here again, I'm just trying to take the front face of the crib off, and you will see I have quite the struggle doing that because I do it the Megan way and it doesn't always work out the way it needs to. And so these bolts that I'm using to keep the crib together, my friend and I had to get the bolts from Lowe's or Home Depot or something like that. His father and I had found something, but it didn't quite work. But there was one bolt that we had gotten that had actually fit inside. It just wasn't what we needed to use. So anyway, my friend and I went back and got what we actually needed that was going to fit and work, and it has worked thus far. So again, this is a 13-plus-year-old crib that I used on my older son, and so I just am using what works to keep the bed together. So at any rate, I took all of the screws out, or the bolts, or what have you, out of the front of the crib, because I couldn't figure out how to get this front face lowered and then taken off, if that makes sense. Anyway, you can lower it and then somehow take it off, but I just couldn't figure it out. So I had to take it all apart and figure out how to get the just the front face off. I don't know. It seemed more difficult as I'm going through this than it really was, but at the end I made it work. So here I'm just going back in and reading the instructions, just double checking and making sure I'm not doing anything wrong to make this into a toddler bed. And just gonna take out the bottom insert, which you have to unhook. There's little hooks that keep the bottom board together, and so I had to unhook those to take the front face off because it just wasn't going to work the way I did it. And so anyway, I was just making do with what I had to do, and honestly I just wanted to keep him safe, and so my mission was to just get this off, get him into a toddler bed, and get him into a safe situation. So my son had to grab a wrench, or I don't know what it was, but he had to get something so I could get this piece off. And so it was fairly tight, and so I just had to use that to get it completely unscrewed and off. So here I am just taking the screws or the bolts or whatever you may want to call it, and just putting them all back in place and putting that front of the crib, I don't know, it's like the front face legs of the crib, I guess I would say. I don't even know, I don't have the terms of it, but I had to put them all back in place so the crib would stay together essentially. But as you saw, I was really struggling to get the front of the crib off and these legs back together, but essentially it worked. I got it back together, got the bottom board put back on and safely secured. So yeah, at any rate, I'm just gonna keep going. So I'm making it towards the end of this and getting this bed transitioned into a toddler bed for, again, my 20-month-old. And I'm just putting the new bedding back on, and I am getting his secured sheet over his, or a secure pillowcase over his pillow. And here it is. Very simple, easy transition baby bed into a toddler bed. And here is my little one getting all ready for bed.
You got your big boy bed? No more climbing out.
At any rate, you guys, thanks for watching and have a good night.